Hello, I'm Simon Whistler, you're watching TopTenzNet, and in the video today we're looking at the top 10 instances when people took pop culture way too seriously. Here at Toptenz, we're never ones to shy away from admitting our faults, and we know that in the past we've been guilty of overanalyzing some pulp culture perhaps a little too much. That said, we always did it with our tongue planted firmly in our cheek. Today we're here to talk about 10 aspects of pop culture that people took more seriously than we've ever imagined. For example, consider the absolute mess that has arose as a result of people arguing about Number 10. The pronunciation of the word GIF. Now, just before I get into this one, obviously this is about a pronunciation, so it's going to get a little bit weird. Hopefully you'll be able to follow along. First of all, we're not going to insult any of you by suggesting that you don't know what a GIF is. But for those of you who don't, they're the ubiquitous moving images that you see everywhere online. They can be used to show anything from a movie clip to a ninja octopus and, well, everything in between. And they're pretty much a staple of the internet ecosystem and a massive part of current popular culture. GIF stands for Graphics Interchange Format, which was created by a guy named Steve Willite back in 1987. Now, according to Willite, GIF should be pronounced with a soft G, sort of like in the word giraffe, meaning that it's pronounced GIF. The internet, however, disagrees, saying that it should be a hard G because the G in GIF stands for graphic, which is also pronounced with a hard G. This argument has been going back and forth without a clear victor emerging since the 90s. In fact, the arguments about how to pronounce GIF are so fierce that the Oxford Freaking Dictionary simply accepts both pronunciations because it's easier than having people write in to complain because, well, you know that they would. Seriously, if you go to the comment section below this video, you're probably going to find people tearing their throats out over the pronunciation of this word. The fact that this argument has been going on for over a decade when the creator of the format itself has already given an incredibly blunt answer to the question is a testament to the lengths that people will go to prove a point. Speaking of which, number 9, the argument about Game of Thrones that ended with someone nearly being thrown out of a window. One of the things that makes the Game of Thrones series so engaging is the fact that nobody is safe from being killed off, maimed, or otherwise removed from the show in the most bloody and brutal way possible. Now, we don't want to ruin any part of the fun, so we're not going to spoil any part of the show for people who are worried about that. All we're going to say is that something happened in the show that really annoyed this one Florida resident. According to police reports, the man, identified as Michael Podnestransky, got into a heated argument with his cousin over an event in the show's second episode. The exact cause of the argument isn't exactly known. When it dawned on Podnestransky that words weren't the way to sway his pig-headed cousin's opinion on the matter, he calmly and politely punched him in the face and tried to throw him through a window. No charges were filed because, presumably, well, both men wanted to see what would happen in the third episode. And I mean, hey, it's not like anyone got shot or anything, right? Number 8. The guy who shot his girlfriend over an argument about The Walking Dead. Like Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead is a show that has a very devoted fan base. If you've managed to venture online this long without ever encountering it, or the comic series it's based on, the show basically follows the day-to-day adventures of a group of people trying to survive after a zombie apocalypse. The reason we bring up the premise of the show is because the cause of an actual zombie outbreak, which is the entire crux of the series, is something that has never been elaborated upon. In fact, the creator of the original comic book has openly stated that he'll probably never explain how the outbreak began because it's not important to the story that he wants to tell. In other words, it's supposed to be intentionally vague to add to the mystery of the show. Jared Gurman, however, didn't want to accept that and was insistent that a military mishap of some kind could potentially cause an identical situation. Gurman's girlfriend Jessica didn't accept this theory, which led to an argument so explosive she went to stay at her parents' house. That in itself is kind of ridiculous, but Gurman, well, he didn't stop there. Even after his girlfriend had left the house, he continued to send her abusive text messages because how could he be wrong? Showing more patience than her boyfriend deserved, Jessica went back to her house to calm her boyfriend down. 10 minutes later, he'd shot her through the back with a rifle, which is a perfectly reasonable response if you're totally insane. Luckily, Gurman was as bad at shooting as he was at arguing, and Jessica survived the ordeal. Gurman was later arrested, and it was discovered that he was passionate about weapons because, well, of course he was. Number 7. The people arguing about whether or not libraries should stock Harry Potter. Whether you like the Harry Potter series or not, there is one fact about the books that you absolutely cannot argue with, and that's that they got a ton of kids into reading. That fact alone should be more than enough to warrant the book's inclusion in any respectable library or place of learning. However, some people disagree, not because the books aren't proper literature or because they're chock full of plot holes, but because they promote witchcraft. Before you go ahead and think that this is probably due to a small minority of overprotective parents yelling loud enough to make the local news, we should point out that Harry Potter is literally one of the most challenged books of all time. Challenged in this context means that people have formally complained about the book appearing in public and school libraries. Alright, so let it just soak in for a moment that one of the single most popular children's books of all time, a book that got millions of children to read and spawned characters more popular than some real-life celebrities, is constantly having to justify its place in libraries. Number 6. The guys who got into a fist fight over a martial arts game. Because you're going to see video games rearing their head a few more times over the course of this video, we should stress that we're not under the impression that video games, or indeed any kind of media, causes violent behavior. We're well aware that almost all of the arguments and acts of violence we'll be covering today were caused by stupid people, not the media they consumed. That said, video games seem to attract a disproportionate amount of people with a propensity to doing something that makes you shake your head in disbelief. Case in point, in October of 2012, 2 Chinese teenagers got into an actual fist fight over an argument about which fictional martial art was the best in the Jet Li MMO that they were both playing in a local internet cafe. Before the two men came to blows, they'd been having a passionate argument about whose virtual kung fu could kick the most ass, and when the owner of the cafe asked the 2 teenagers, well, to shut the hell up, they instead agreed they should take the argument outside. Long story short, a few minutes later the police were called to drag the 2 bloody teenagers off each other, and they were given a stern warning not to do it again. We'd end on a snarky comment here, but the cafe owner already beat us to it with this quote: "I've never met such losers in my life, fighting over literally nothing." Number 5. The music fans who harassed Lorde over a quote she never said. If you're one of those annoying hipster types who claims to be able to avoid any and all popular music just so you can look cool and aloof at parties, this is Lorde. And now that we're all on the same page, let's talk about her boyfriend James Lowe. A photographer by trade, Lowe was thrust into the media spotlight when his relationship with Lorde was made public. For the most part, this wasn't a big deal until One Direction fans suddenly decided they hated Lorde. This resulted in a deluge of racist, insulting and poorly spelled messages being hurled at her. According to various sources, fans of One Direction and Justin Bieber, who are widely known for their placid temperaments and ability to take criticism, out of nowhere decided that Lorde had called their musical idols ugly. For the record, there is no known record of Lorde ever saying anything like this. She did, however, call them overrated, a sentiment echoed by about 90% of the online world. But arguing about why the music you like is culturally relevant is difficult and requires the use of long words, so fans of both acts decided it was just easier to send Lorde and her boyfriend, whom is of Asian descent, racist messages. Because, of course, there's no way anything you ever say online is ever going to come back and bite you in the arse, is there? Number 4. The fans who threatened the creators of the game over millisecond changes. Like we said a few paragraphs ago, there are a lot of entries about video games in this video because they seem to be the medium that attracts the most people willing to immediately resort to offensive language when things don't exactly go their way. This is something we'd like to dub the FIFA effect because that game is probably the king of broken controllers and friendships. Moving away from that, we'd like to discuss what happens when the creators of a popular shooting game, Call of Duty Black Ops 2, released a patch that literally changed the way some guns fired by a fraction of a second. Well, in short, the fans, they went bat poop crazy. In response to a patch that was released with the express intention of making the game more balanced, or in other words, better for everyone except the small fraction of players abusing bugs that were never meant to be in the game in the first place, people sent one of the people who worked on the game real-life death threats. In case the full stupidity of that sentence isn't sinking in, we'll reiterate what we just said. The people sending these threats took time out of killing people in a virtual world to threaten to kill a man in our world, virtually. Well, that's some real next-level stupidity right there. Number 3. The beer pong stabber. We're just going to jump right into this one because it's so absurd we didn't actually believe it happened until we found a CBS article confirming its legitimacy. And this is that a guy was stabbed over an argument about beer pong. As most of you are probably doing right now, we assumed that someone was stabbed during a game of beer pong and the news just got really carried away. But no, police reports seem to totally confirm the argument was caused, or at least exacerbated, by a simple game of beer pong. Well, hold on a moment, because isn't the point of that game that it's supposed to be all about drinking and having fun? And since when did knives become fun, and when did it become a good time to pull those out at a party? Number 2. People really wanted Frozen merchandise. For everybody reading this who doesn't have a girlfriend, sister, female friend, or a Tumblr account, Frozen is a Disney movie that seems to have really struck a chord with a big chunk of the population, in particular young girls and boys. As you'd expect from a Disney movie, Frozen has of course spawned a slew of related merchandise. However, the bigwigs at Disney seemingly underestimated the potential popularity of the film, which resulted in merchandise selling faster than the company could restock the shelves. This left parents with excitable children suffering from Frozen mania with two choices: calmly explaining to their children that they can't always get what they want and that they'd have to get something else, or go absolutely insane and start punching cashiers until Frozen merchandise magicked itself into existence. Understandably, a lot of parents chose the latter option. According to workers in the biggest Disney store in New York, customers didn't react well to being told that they were sold out of Frozen merchandise. While some customers resorted to attacking cashiers who were clearly hoarding merchandise for themselves, others resorted to trying to guilt employees into supplying them stock that literally didn't exist by claiming that their children were sick, dying, or worse, a tactic that's also common amongst parents with no souls who want to get into Disneyland for free. For parents who didn't want to take the "my child is dying, give me free stuff" route, the only other option was to spend thousands of dollars buying the merchandise online, which is exactly what some parents did, because $1,200 is a perfectly reasonable amount of money to spend on a 9-inch tall doll that normally retails for $16.95. That, by the way, is a 7,000% markup. This whole series of events echoes several toy fads from history, in particular the Beanie Baby craze, which saw parents snatching toys from the hands of children, dressing up in different outfits to try and bypass a 3 beanie per person limit at certain stores, and buying dozens of Happy Meals and throwing them away just to get the free Beanie Baby that they contained. And hey, lying about your kid having a terminal disease, stealing from infants, and straight up assault are perfectly acceptable responses to your child really liking a Disney movie, right? Number 1. The awful fans ruining cosplay for everyone. Cosplay is the act of dressing up like a fictional character from a movie, TV show, video game, or anime just for fun. Though it was once a niche pastime enjoyed by a select few superfans, thanks to a recent explosion of all things nerdy, it has become a far more commonplace aspect of pop culture. One of the best things about cosplay is that there's no right or wrong way to do it. Want to painstakingly recreate your favorite character right down to the shade of blue on their jockstrap? Well, go for it. Want to gender bend a well-known and established character? Well, great. Want to cover yourself in red paper and tape and say that you're Iron Man? Well, you'd be mad if you didn't. Despite the fact that cosplaying is something 99% of people do for fun, an increasingly common and depressing trend in the world of cosplay is bullying, with many cosplayers of both genders reporting abuse and general unpleasantness from the very people who call themselves fans of the things that they're trying to celebrate. Complaints from cosplayers range from being told they're too unattractive to portray a certain character, to their ownership of a penis being unacceptable. And of course, there is a healthy amount of sexism and harassment as well, because, well, it's not a party without those guys. We were going to end this article on a positive note, but instead we're just going to say that if you're the kind of person who feels like you should be able to tell people not to dress up like a kick-ass wizard or Batman, you're the one with the problem, not them. So I really hope that you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and don't forget to subscribe for brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Also, over there on the right, a couple of other videos that you might enjoy if you enjoyed this one, and thank you for watching.